Hey guys, today we're going to be reviewing the new Natasha Denona Xenon Palette. So this palette already has so many mixed reviews and I really want to make sure that I'm giving you guys accurate swatches. I'm going to do 2 looks and I'm going to try to see if I can get 2 very different looks out of this palette because it does look very monochromatic. When you look at it, it's very grayscale. There's not a lot of variation in the color. So I'm going to make sure to be brutally honest here and let you know if this is actually worth spending $70 on or if you should skip it. I do have an alternative that's a lot cheaper, but I do want to make sure I give this palette a fair shot as always. So if that sounds good, let's go ahead and jump right in and get started. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and do a close-up of the palette first, and we'll take a look at some swatches before we dive in a little bit more in depth. And just to let you know, I did purchase this palette myself. I got it at Ulta, and I basically got it for free because Ulta sent out a 20% off coupon the same day this launched. So I had that plus $53 in points. So I basically only paid $20 for the expedited shipping because I wanted to get it here in time to do a video. If you have Ulta points, if you have that 20% off coupon, I think it's probably worth buying it at Ulta. But if you want to make 100% sure that it's going to get to you in one piece and it's going to be packaged well, I think the Natasha Denona website, I've always had really great experiences with them. They ship really, really fast. And I also have a 15% off coupon code for them. So if you don't have Ulta points or an Ulta coupon, then you can always grab it at Natasha Denona and use my code Jen Phelps. So anyway, let's go ahead and take a closer look at this. So packaging wise, it basically looks like outer space. It's all black with the little white stars everywhere. I think it absolutely fits the theme of the palette. It's really just sleek and simple and pretty. So I love that. And then when you open it up, some of you may be surprised to see, or maybe not if you've seen reviews already, that this looks very gray in person. And in the promo photos, it looked like it had a little bit more color variation. It looked like it had a brighter pop of pink, and that pink in person is a lot more subdued. It does have a taupey champagne color down at the bottom corner that's a little bit different as well, but most of the palette is just really gray and silver overall. So right away, I'll just say you need to like gray and silver if you're going to buy this palette, otherwise it completely doesn't make sense. And then when I swatched it out, I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised because I've seen some other swatches in different YouTube videos already, and I felt like in some cases the swatches looked very blue toned. In other cases, it just looked like a whole bunch of swatches of gray and silver. But I was pleasantly surprised that when I swatched it, it actually, you can see the pink, you can see that taupey champagne color. There is variation. There's a deep kind of midnight or navy blue in there. So while I still don't think there's a lot of variety in here as far as shades go, it's a little better than I was expecting. And as always, I'm giving you very, very accurate color swatches. I always make sure that what I'm seeing on my camera screen is what I see in real life. So hopefully this helps you guys out to be able to see what the colors look like, but I want to take it just one step further and break out both the mattes and the shimmer shades separately, because when I look at this palette, I'm not quite sure what I want to do as far as looks go. And I really haven't seen anybody else break it down this way, but I think it'll be really, really helpful both for me and hopefully for you guys to be able to kind of figure out what types of looks you could put together with this palette. So let's go ahead and just start out and isolate just the matte shades first. And there are actually only 5 matte shades in this palette. It is very shimmer heavy, and they really range from white to black and everything in between. So you have a pure white matte shade, then you have one that's almost white, but it has a little tinge of gray to it. Then in the center, you have a very, very pale taupe. Then you have a mid-tone cool gray. And then finally, you have your matte black, which is actually one of her cream to powder shades. So just looking at these, there's really only one shade that I would use for a crease color, and that's that mid-tone gray, the second one from the right. The others I would use to maybe blend out my crease or use as an eyebrow highlight. You could also put these really light shades all over the lid if you're doing a matte look. But if you're somebody who likes to start with a color in your crease, like a mid-tone shade, there really only is one of those in this palette. So I felt like that was very helpful for me to see right off the start. And then when it comes to the shimmer shades, we have 10 altogether, ranging again from very, very light all the way to very dark. And similarly to the mattes, there aren't a lot of midtones here to choose from. So on the lighter side of the spectrum, toward the left-hand side of your screen, you have a lot of those toppers, the ones that have a little bit of a wet look. It's her newer formula. And a lot of these, honestly, like the first three look really similar, and I think that they would look very similar on the eye. They're very, very pale white or silver. And then next to that, you have a silver that has just slightly more depth. And then next to that one is that pink shade, which isn't all that pink, but in a swatch at least, I can see that it looks pink. We'll have to see how it translates on the eyes. And then the next one is that taupe champagne, which is actually the only warm tone in this palette. I was kind of surprised to see this because in the promo photos, I didn't really notice that there were any warm tones, but it's definitely quite a bit warmer. Then you have a mid-tone gray shimmer, which actually is really pretty. I think this would be great on the lid if you're going to be doing more of a smoky eye. And then the last three, you're going very, very dark. So I would probably personally use these shades either for the outer corner just to add some depth, or maybe as a liner. You could also use these all over the lid if you're going for a really deep, dark, smoky eye, but I would be most likely just to use them as accent colors. So again, hopefully seeing it broken out this way will just help you guys to figure out if you would use this palette or how you would use these different shades. So why don't we go ahead now and get into the demo. I'm going to do 2 looks, and I'm going to try to see if I can get them to look as different as I possibly can. And I also have one comparison palette that I'm going to show you guys after that. So let's go ahead and just get into the looks first. All right, so I really want to use that pink shade. And I'm thinking the best way maybe to make it pop would be to put down the white first all over my lid, because that's normally what you can do to really bring out the color of a shade, is to use a white base. So I think I'm going to start out with this shade Contrail down here, and I'm just going to start packing this all over my lid. And this brush is from the Alter Ego brush set, so I'll link that down below in case you guys are interested. But yeah, if you guys go on the Natasha Denona website, she has a lot of different looks already on there with this palette. And most of them, to be honest, they look very futuristic and not something that I would be likely to wear. But a lot of them featured the white matte shade on the lid and then something darker more toward the outer corner, or she did like some interesting things with kind of like graphic looking creases and wings and all of that. I'm just going to try to do something like really simple and wearable. Next, I'm just going to pick up this gray shade down here called Snert. This is the one that was the crease color that I was talking about. It's really the only mid-tone in the palette. And I'm just going to bring this back and forth and just add it as a crease color. This is the BK Beauty A504 brush. So I'm just kind of carving out a new crease because I have hooded eyes and my crease is like all the way down here. So I do really like this gray for my crease though. I think it's a perfect color. It's not too dark, not too light. I might actually use this shade Blizzard right here, which was the white one that had the little tinge of gray, and just use that to kind of blend the edge a little bit. Then I'm going to deepen the outer corner with, this shade Night Sky, which is this one right here. And I'm also using that A504 brush from BK Beauty to do this. I'm just using this shade very sparingly. If I have to add more, I can always go back. But even though it looks black in the pan, when you shear it out, it actually just looks like a deep charcoal gray. All right, so now that I have depth at the outer corner, I really want to try out that pink shade. But normally I would put down a glitter primer first just to help it pop. But since I have that white matte shade down, I can't use glitter primer. So I'm going to use a setting spray just to wet it. This is the Charlotte Tilbury one. I'm really hoping that this shows up pink on the eyes. So I'm just going to spritz it a little bit. And here we go. Let's see. I'm really worried that it's just going to look silver. Yeah. Wow, what is with that? What are you guys seeing on your screen? Because I'm seeing like a bluish silvery gray color. It doesn't look pink at all, yet it totally looked pink in my swatch. I'm curious if I just apply it maybe a little bit heavier, it'll look more pink like it did when I swatched it. So let's see, just going in with another coat. All right, yeah, this is the weirdest thing. It does not look pink at all on my eyes. So very, very interesting. I honestly am a little bit disappointed. I like how the look came out. I think it's a really pretty eye look, but I really wanted that pink to show up pink. And it's not to say that you couldn't pull a pink from a different palette to use with some of these shades, because you absolutely could, and I think that would actually be really nice. But I kind of wish that it had it already in there. All right, that's a bummer. So now I'm gonna go in with this shade again for the other eye. I'm gonna just put that in my crease as well. I can definitely see how these eye looks are gonna start to get repetitive, because I basically have one crease color in here. And if the pink looks kind of silvery on my eye, and then you guys saw in my swatches all of the other shimmer shades that look really white and silvery, I feel like they're all just gonna end up looking the same on your eyes. And then I'm actually gonna warm up my crease a little bit with this shade Fluffy right here. So this is the one that looked like a really, really pale taupe. And I'm just gonna use this to blend out that gray and just go over it a little bit, just so that it looks slightly warmer and not quite as cool toned. All right, then I think I want to try this blue called Ebb. This is a little bit different compared to all the other grays and blacks in the palette. And I'm just gonna pat this right on the outer corner to deepen that up. It actually doesn't apply as deep as it looks in the pan. It looks like a really dark navy, but on the eye, it actually is quite a bit lighter. I'm guessing you could build up the depth if you add more, but it does sheer out, so. All right, then I think I'm gonna go ahead and try this taupey shade and see what this one looks like. I've seen so many gray and silver looks already on YouTube. You guys probably have too. So I'm just trying to use some different shades and see if we can come up with some different looks, but I don't know. I don't know if this is gonna be just like the pink one and it's just gonna look gray on my eyes. I have no idea. So I'm also wetting this one, and I'm just gonna start this on the inner corner and go back toward the center. It's actually a pretty sheer color, but when you build it up, if you wet it a little, it definitely comes alive a little more. It's actually a beautiful color. It has a lot of sparkle to it, but I'm noticing thankfully that these shades don't have a lot of fallout, if any. All right, and then I think I'm just gonna connect the two with this mid-tone gray shimmer right here, because I feel like it's kind of a really light shade to a dark shade, so I just wanna put something in the middle to connect them. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of that right here just to kind of blend them a little bit. And then I'm just running a little bit of that blue under the lower lash line and a little bit of that gray crease color under the lash line over on this side. All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and add some mascara, and then we'll take a closer look at both eyes. Okay, so here we have the two finished looks. We have the one over here, which the more I look at it, the more I do see the slight tint of pink, but really it's not like you would look at the eye look and say, like, that's a pink shimmer shade. It looks like it just has a tiny little bit of a pink shift every now and then, but mostly I feel like it looks like a very pale silver. And then over here on this eye, you have like that midnight blue with that champagne shade, and it gives quite a bit of a different look. So, I mean, I do think there are different looks that you can get with this palette. Not everything is gonna come out just gray and silver, but obviously you can do that too. I really didn't go very dark with my looks. You can get, I think, very deep and smoky looks out of this palette as well if you wanted to. I just wanna isolate each eye look so we can see just what they look like without the distraction of the other side. So again, here is that pink look, or pink in quotes. And then over here we have the blue with the champagne. And also I just want to put it out there that I'm not a makeup artist. I know there are a lot of way more talented people here on YouTube that are doing eye looks, but I always just try to give you guys something that's very realistic, something that you could do at home if you're not that skilled at eyeshadow. So hopefully this helps you to just get a little picture of what you can do with this palette. I think you could easily take these looks and deepen them up further. Like if you were to use the shimmery black, let's say on the outer corner here, instead of the softer black that I used. If you do this mid-tone gray all over the lid, instead of just like as a little accent like I did over here, that'll create a deeper, smokier look. Or this bright silver all over the lid, I think would also be really beautiful. So there is quite a bit that you can do with this palette. I think you just have to to really like gray and silver because that's how most of your looks are going to come out. You can make them look a little bit different here and there, but it's not going to be as versatile as something like her Glam palette, for example, which when you look at this one, yes, you do have some cool shades in here. You can go with a gray look or a silver look if you want to, but there's also a lot of warmth in here. You have these rich golds and like a rose gold over here. So I just feel like if you want neutral eye looks that can go anywhere from cool to warm, I would get something like this, like the Glam palette, because it's very versatile. But if you just want those cool tones and you don't care about warm shades, then, I mean, this might be something to check out. There is a less expensive alternative, and that is the ColourPop Smoke Show palette. Or actually, I don't think it's called Smoke Show anymore. It's called something else. They changed the name. I'm not sure why. But I have the original one that still says Smoke Show. All of the shades inside are exactly the same, and they all have the same names and everything. But this is very similar. So I'll show you guys what they look like side by side. I mean, really, it's kind of like the Natasha Denona Xenon palette condensed down into a 9-pan, which I think you realistically could do. There are a lot of repeat shades in the Natasha Denona palette, especially when it comes to like those silvery white toppers. There's a lot of those shades in there, and you really don't need them all. The ColourPop palette gives you that complete range from white all the way to black and everything in between, but you kind of get like one of each color rather than multiples. I would say the biggest differences are that in the ColourPop palette, you're not getting that pink shade, which as we saw, isn't really that pink on the eyes anyway, and you're not getting that taupey champagne color. The ColourPop palette actually has 6 mattes and only 3 shimmers, so it's a little bit more heavy on the mattes. And one of those matte shades in the ColourPop palette almost has a little bit of like a purple leaning tint to it, which I think is really beautiful, and I would have loved to see that one in the Natasha Denona palette. So I think at the end of the day, you are going to get really similar, almost identical looks out of the ColourPop palette, unless you just really love Natasha's formula and you feel like, you know, that's worth spending the money on over ColourPop, then I would say go for it. I mean, I felt like the looks that I did were really easy to achieve, no fallout. Like I said, everything applied really beautifully. So no complaints there. And also there is another alternative. I don't have the mini Xenon palette, but Natasha Denona also has that out as well. So I think using that, you're also going to get that grayish silverish look that you're going to get with the larger palette. Obviously it doesn't have as many shades, but if you just want to play with these colors a little bit, but you don't necessarily want an entire 15-pan palette of them, then that might just be a good alternative instead. So anyway, guys, those are my thoughts on the new MIDI Xenon palette, and I hope that this video was helpful for you. And if you do have the palette or you ordered it already, hopefully you can get a little bit of inspiration as far as looks go. And I just want to take a second to thank all of you for clicking on this video and for spending time here with me today. I really, really appreciate it so much. If you enjoyed this video, I would love for you to hit the subscribe button before you go. If you have some extra time and you'd like to check out some more of my videos, I'll just pop one right here for you to check out next. Thanks, guys, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in my next one. Take care. Bye.